Let's talk about something that should have Browns fans nervous and Shedeur Sanders absolutely fired up. When Cam Newton, yes, Super Bowl MVP, Heisman winning, dabbing on everybody Cam Newton, goes on record and says you're in trouble? That's not a hot take. That's a warning shot. And make no mistake, this wasn't Cam trolling. This wasn't one of those washed-up ex-pros yelling into a podcast mic just to trend on Twitter for 12 hours. This was a guy who's been there, who's lived the rookie roller coaster, pulling the alarm because he sees something deeply familiar and deeply broken in the way the Cleveland Browns are handling Shedeur Sanders. Let's break it all down.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Because this story isn't just about a struggling rookie quarterback. It's about a team failing its young star in every way that counts. 5 drives, 5 sacks, 0 protection. That's not development. That's exposure. It's sending your guy out there behind a wet paper towel of an offensive line and acting shocked when he gets flattened like a pancake in front of 70,000 people and a national audience. And the worst part? This isn't new for Shedeur. As Cam pointed out, this lack of protection has followed Sanders since college. The kid's been running for his life behind shaky O-lines his entire career. You'd think once he hit the NFL, a billion-dollar franchise would say, okay, let's hit this kid a proper wall of protection. Instead, they threw him behind a third-string line in preseason called vanilla plays and acted confused when the results were ugly. And yeah, the results were ugly. Let's not sugarcoat it. Sanders looked rattled. He didn't step up in the pocket. He held onto the ball too long. His decision-making lagged. But here's what Cam nailed better than anyone else. Those are not just rookie mistakes. They're survival instincts built from years of having to escape pressure the moment the ball is snapped. When you don't trust your line, you don't plant your feet. You don't progress through reads. You don't step up, you drift, you roll, you bail. And that's exactly what Shedeur is doing. Cam called it out for what it is. Not a lack of talent, but a lack of support. A quarterback playing like a guy who expects to be hit every single time. That's not development, that's trauma. And while we're here, let's talk about the coaching staff. Because Cam wasn't subtle, he questioned every decision. Why was Shedeur benched during the 2-minute drill? Why was he kept out of red zone reps? Why did Dillon Gabriel, the less heralded rookie, get the better line, the cleaner playbook, the structured drives? Let's be real. It looks like favoritism. It feels like the staff has already picked their guy. And it's not the one with the most jersey sales. And yes, Shedeur's jersey is flying off the shelves. He's already a star with fans. He's a walking brand, the kind of player who lights up social media and gets young fans to tune in. But the Browns seem to be handling him like a long-shot UDFA, not a potential franchise QB. That's the real story here, disconnect between the ownership, who clearly sees Shedeur as an investment, and the coaching staff, who seem hesitant, maybe even resistant, to develop him properly. And let's talk about that word, development. You don't develop a quarterback by hiding him. You don't put him on the bench when the game matters most, and then critique his lack of presence. You don't send him out with a third-string O-line, and then question his poise when he's scrambling for his life. You develop a quarterback by giving him the tools to grow. Representatives coaching, real protection, and most importantly, trust. Cam Newton wasn't just criticizing the system. He was pleading with Shedeur to stay mentally sharp, stay confident. Because in the NFL, if your own coaches don't believe in you, it doesn't matter what your potential is. That can break even the most talented player. And let's get honest for a second. This league, it's not always fair. Politics exist. Optics matter. And sometimes, yes, the guy with the media hype doesn't get the reps because the coaching staff wants to humble him. But when your guy leads the team in jersey sales, is outperforming others in practice, and still isn't being given meaningful snaps, that's not discipline. That's sabotage disguised as strategy. Cam saw it. Fans see it. And you better believe Shedeur sees it too. Now, let's talk about what this does to a locker room. When a young guy with talent and hype gets buried on the depth chart while a quieter rookie with less pressure gets nurtured. It sends a message. Not just to Shadur, but to everyone. The message? We pick favorites here. We don't reward performance, we reward politics. That fractures locker rooms. That creates tension. And if the Browns aren't careful, this won't just be a QB controversy. It'll be a full-blown culture crisis. And what's wild is that Shadur isn't asking for the world. He's not demanding the starting role. He's not holding out. He's not tweeting cryptic Drake lyrics. He's showing up. He's doing the work. He's staying quiet, which might be the scariest part for the Browns, because when a quarterback this talented starts going quiet, that's when you start losing him. And Cam knows that silence. He's lived that silence. The kind that sets in when you realize the system isn't built to help you. It's built to test how much you'll tolerate before you walk away. So what's the fix here? It's simple. The Browns need to stop treating Shadur like a marketing gimmick and start treating him like a quarterback. A real one. Not a YouTube celebrity. Not Coach Prime's son. A guy who can win you football games if you just give him a line and a real chance. Cam said it best. Right now, Shadur doesn't need to be Superman. He needs to be a manager. Get the ball out fast. Keep the chains moving. Build trust. Because once the trust is there, then you unleash the magic. Then you get the highlight plays. But that only comes when the foundation is strong. And right now, that foundation is a mess. So yeah, Cam Newton's not wrong when he says Shadur Sanders is in trouble. But it's not because of talent. It's because of the situation, the system, the decisions being made above him. The good news? This story isn't over. There's still time to turn the ship around. Still time for the Browns to realize what they've got and course correct before they lose him. Not just on the field, but emotionally. Because if they don't, they're going to find out the hard way that you can't build a dynasty if you bury your best hope beneath a broken system and call it development. The league is watching. The fans are watching. And Shadur? He's waiting. Better move fast, Cleveland. Because once a quarterback stops believing in the people around him, it's only a matter of time before he stops believing in the jersey too. So where were we? Oh right, Shadur Sanders standing in the middle of a storm that he didn't start. Cam Newton's frustration isn't just about play calling or protection. It's about how the NFL machine is already trying to squeeze Shadur into a box he was never meant to fit in. And here's the reality. This league, it loves a breakout star. Until that star doesn't shine immediately under pressure. Then it turns cold, fast. What Cam sees, and what every smart observer sees, is a kid with all the tools, poise, intelligence, arm talent, leadership. But instead of grooming him, the Browns are testing him like he's expendable. They're putting him behind a broken line, calling dry plays, and expecting fireworks? Please. That's not development. That's damage. And Cam didn't hold back when he brought up the real issue, confidence. That's the core of every great quarterback. You lose that, you might as well pack your bags. You can fix mechanics. You can work on reads. But once a young QB starts second-guessing himself, once he stops trusting the pocket, or worse, himself, that's when careers get derailed. And Shadur is teetering. Not because he's not good, not because he's not ready, but because the people around him aren't treating him like a future starter. They're treating him like a gimmick, like a jersey, like a headline. And let's just say it. If Shadur's last name wasn't Sanders, would this situation be playing out differently? Would he still be behind Dylan Gabriel on the depth chart? Would he still be watching red zone drills from the sideline like a third stringer? Would he still be getting pummeled behind a disposable offensive line just so the coaches could evaluate under pressure? Probably not. And that's what stings. Because Shadur didn't ask for the spotlight. He earned it. He didn't coast into the league off his dad's name. He dominated in college, put up numbers, played with swagger and discipline. So for him to be treated like an experiment, while other rookies are given the royal treatment, it's not just unfair. It's detrimental. Cam Newton made a bold but accurate point. This isn't just about talent. It's about trajectory. If the Browns continue on this path, if they keep trotting Shadur out there to fail, to be criticized, to be humbled, then they're not just hurting this season. They're sabotaging their future. And here's the kicker. The fans know it. They're watching. They see the missed blocks. They see the zero blitzes on a rookie quarterback. They see the coaches turning their backs when Shedeur walks off the field. And they're not stupid. You can't sell next-gen QB merch and then treat the guy like he's lucky to be on the roster. Eventually, those fans turn. And when they do, it gets ugly. So what now? Cam's advice is gold. Be a game manager. Forget the deep bombs. Forget trying to silence critics in one throw. Focus on the basics. Protect the ball. Move the chains. Let the game come to you. Because once the Browns start realizing that you're not rattled, not desperate, and not going away, they'll have no choice but to respect it. But let's be clear. Shedeur can't do this alone. He needs someone in that building to stand up and say, "This is our guy. We're going to protect him, develop him, believe in him." That doesn't mean naming him the starter tomorrow. It means building a structure that actually supports his growth. Because if they don't, someone else will. You think there aren't GMs around the league watching this unfold? You think teams like the Falcons, the Raiders, or even the Giants wouldn't kill for a young, marketable, mature QB with elite upside? If the Browns fumble this, they'll be the punchline. So to Cleveland, this is your moment. You can either double down on mediocrity or lean into the future and start building something real around Shedeur Sanders. Because he's not in trouble because of who he is. He's in trouble because of how you're treating him. And if you don't get it together fast, he'll be proving you wrong from another sideline in another jersey, while you're left wondering what could have been. And honestly, that might be exactly what he needs. So here's what nobody in Cleveland seems ready to admit. Shedeur Sanders has already outgrown the script they wrote for him. This was never supposed to be about competition. It was supposed to be about development, about patience, about learning the system. But now, 3 preseason games in, that narrative is dead in the water. Because Shedeur didn't show up like a starry-eyed rookie happy to hold a clipboard. He showed up ready to compete, ready to lead, ready to win. And that's the problem. The Browns weren't prepared for Shedeur to shine. They were prepared for him to sit. They were prepared to pat him on the head, call him promising, and stash him behind the safe, boring choices. You know, Dylan Gabriel for structure, Joe Flacco for nostalgia, Tyler Huntley for reasons. Shedeur, he wasn't supposed to challenge anything. But he did. And he is. Every time he throws a laser across the middle. Every time he shrugs off a sack and scrambles for a first down. Every time the fans cheer his name louder than the starters. He's disrupting the plan. And in the NFL, that's dangerous. Because when a rookie becomes a threat to the hierarchy, that's when coaches panic. That's when rotations get weird, play calls get vanilla, and sideline injury evaluations mysteriously pop up mid-drive. That's when they say he's not ready, even though everyone watching knows he is. And let's be honest, how many times have we seen this movie? The young QB with juice gets stashed behind some bridge veteran who can't push the ball 30 yards downfield. The staff plays conservative. The team goes 2-4. Then, when the season's already slipping, they finally hand the kid the keys. Only now he's cold, frustrated, and carrying a fractured locker room on his back. It happens every season. But what makes this situation different, what makes it louder, is the fact that Shedeur isn't just any rookie. He's a symbol, a brand, a beacon for every young athlete who wants to rewrite the rules. And whether the Browns like it or not, the entire country is watching this unfold. You think Shedeur's just battling for snaps? He's battling perception. He's battling politics. He's battling the old guard of the NFL that still believes a quarterback has to suffer before he succeeds. Cam Newton nailed it. This isn't about stats. This is about structure, about intent, about whether the people around you actually want you to win, or if they just want you to wait your turn. And in Cleveland, that answer is murky at best. But let's flip the lens. Let's say Shedeur does get a shot. Let's say Joe Flacco stumbles out the gate, which, let's face it, is more of a when than an if. Let's say the fans chant a little louder, and the front office starts feeling the pressure. Suddenly, Shedeur's under center, lights bright, stakes high. Here's the part nobody's ready for. He could be great. Not decent for a rookie great. Not manages the game well great. We're talking dynamic, change the vibe of the whole franchise great. Because say what you want about pocket presence or mechanics, what Shedeur brings that no one else in that locker room does is swagger with substance. He walks in like he belongs, not because he's cocky, but because he's put in the work. His footwork, sharp. His arm, live. His reads, faster than they get credit for. What he needs isn't polish, it's permission. Permission to lead. Permission to make mistakes. Permission to fail and keep starting the next week. That's what builds confidence. That's what builds quarterbacks. But the Browns? They're still hedging. Still treating him like a media distraction instead of a franchise-altering asset. And you know what's ironic? For a team that's been starving for an answer at quarterback for decades, they finally have someone who could be the guy. And they're hesitating. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's ego. Maybe it's the outdated belief that leadership can only come from the old and gray. But either way, it's costing them. And it might cost them Shedeur entirely. Because let's not pretend Shedeur doesn't have options. This isn't a he's lucky to be here situation. Teams across the league are watching this unfold with a hungry glint in their eye. Front offices that know what it means to build around talent, not stifle it. If Cleveland fumbles this, and they're already halfway there, Shedeur won't be a backup for long. He'll be a starter in a new city, in a new jersey, with a new system that actually wants him to thrive. And then, the Browns will go back to what they've done for years, digging through the bargain bin of quarterback talent, wondering how it all went wrong. So here's the truth. Shedeur Sanders doesn't need Cleveland. Cleveland needs Shedeur Sanders. They need his energy. They need his leadership. They need his vision on and off the field. And if they don't realize that soon, they'll lose more than a player. They'll lose the future. So to the Browns, stop being scared of the moment. Stop babying the system. Stop letting politics choke progress. Give the kid a shot. Not in week 8. Not when it's too late. Now. Because if you're really trying to build something, you start with belief. And right now, all Shedeur's asking for is a fair fight. And here's the kicker. Shedeur doesn't need the starting role handed to him. He's never asked for a crown. He just wants the chance to compete without the deck stacked against him. But every time the Browns put him behind a JV-level O-line, pull him from red zone drills, or treat him like a walking marketing campaign instead of a quarterback, they're not just limiting his reps. They're insulting his preparation. This is a guy who was bred for the moment. Literally. He's been groomed by greatness, coached by one of the sharpest football minds in the game, his father, prime time himself, and studied the NFL like it's his birthright. Because it is. And instead of tapping into that fire, Cleveland's trying to smother it. They're worried about protecting the process, but what they don't realize is they're protecting the wrong thing. They're protecting a structure built on fear, on hesitation, on play-it-safe football that hasn't delivered a single meaningful playoff run in decades. What Shedeur represents is the opposite of that. Risk with reward. Unfiltered belief. Fresh energy. The chance to break the cycle that's kept this franchise mediocre for years. And fans feel that. You walk into a Browns fan forum right now, scroll through any preseason thread, you'll see it. They're begging for someone new. Someone who doesn't feel like a rerun of the last 10 seasons. They're tired of safe. Tired of backups pretending to be starters. Tired of watching raw potential rot on the bench while the same old mistakes keep happening under center. And even if Shedeur has a rocky start, so what? Every rookie does. Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions his first season. Josh Allen couldn't hit a slant route in year 1. Lamar Jackson was called a running back before he won MVP. What did they all have in common? Trust. They were given time. They were allowed to grow. Their teams built around them, not against them. But Cleveland? They're not building. They're barricading. They're shielding themselves from the idea that Shedeur might struggle. So instead of investing in him, they're sidelining him, hoping to avoid criticism instead of owning the future. And Cam Newton saw that from a mile away. That's why his comments hit so hard. He's not calling Shadur a bust. He's calling out a system that's failing him. Because Cam's been there. He knows what it's like to have expectations so high that anything short of perfection feels like failure. He also knows what it's like to be doubted by coaches, by executives, by media. And that's the common thread between Cam and Shadur. Not just talent, not just flair, but a constant battle against a league that loves to celebrate players, just not always support them. And what makes this story even crazier? While all this is happening, while Shadur is fighting for fair reps and basic protection, he's still leading the team in jersey sales. He's still trending, still getting clicks, still filling seats. He is, without exaggeration, one of the most talked about players on the roster. So let's pause and ask, why wouldn't you support that? Why wouldn't you invest in a guy who's not just talented but popular, who can galvanize a fan base, who can make your team relevant on and off the field? It doesn't make sense unless you realize this is bigger than football. This is ego. This is a coaching staff that didn't draft him, that didn't ask for the spotlight he brings, that maybe, just maybe, wants to dim his shine so they can keep control of their team. And if that's true, then it's not just a failure in strategy. It's a failure in vision. Because any smart coach would run toward a player like Shadur, would see the marketability, the leadership, the raw skill, and say, let's build this thing together. But instead, they're playing keep away, gaslighting him with bad play calling and half-hearted reps, then acting surprised when the results don't pop off the screen. So what now? Does Shadur keep his head down and wait his turn? Or does he take the Cam route, stay poised, stay ready, and make absolutely sure that when his number gets called, the entire stadium remembers it? Because make no mistake, that moment is coming. It always does. The veteran slips. The offense stalls. The fans start booing. And then suddenly, all eyes are back on the rookie. And when Shadur steps on that field, not with cockiness, but with purpose, there's going to be no turning back. Because that's the other thing Cam Newton said that the Browns better take seriously. Shadur doesn't need to be the next Mahomes. He doesn't need to be flashy right now. He just needs to be solid, smart, stable, trustworthy. If he does that, if he plays the game with maturity and stays within himself while everything around him is falling apart, he wins. Not just games, but the locker room, the coaching staff, the fan base, the narrative. He becomes unbenchable. And then it's no longer about if Shadur starts. It's about how soon the Browns rebuild everything around him. So to the staff in Cleveland, if you're afraid of what Shadur might do, that says more about you than him. You can either support him now or end up explaining why you let a franchise quarterback walk out the door. And to Shadur, keep going. Because the longer they try to downplay your value, the more explosive your rise is going to be. This isn't the setback. This is the setup. And when that breakthrough comes, because it will, they won't just remember the touchdowns. They'll remember the moment you stopped waiting for permission and took what was already yours.